on 95.3 FM in Windhoek, Desert Radio. The Bold Voice.
McHenry Venaani is finally here. Good morning, sir.
Morning. I'm elated to be with you.
Oh, thank you so much.
We're happy that you're here.
Yeah, we're actually happy that you're here.
Very much.
So we obviously look, people see you every day in Parliament. They understand that you are the leader of the opposition. But I think today we're trying to look a bit deeper into just who the person behind that leadership role is. You understand? So we'll try as much as possible to get away from the usual business you deal with every day, and just try and find out, who the man that woke up this morning is. So I think what I'm particularly interested in, I understand that you're into farming, right? Look, when you go to the farm, what's the favorite part of just being in the farm, around the farm? Is it, being with the animals? Is it, driving around and checking if something is okay? What makes you like farming so much?
Oh, thank you. It's quite a different conversation.
Yeah.
Now, look, I'm a cattle farmer. So most of the time, the premise on the farm is to look after the well-being of the cattle. So when I'm on the farm, the first thing is go to the kraals, see the cows. This year has been a very, very difficult year for me and family. I had COVID early in the year for many months, and then my sister, who was very close to me, passed on, and my farm laborer stole 70 pregnant cows.
Sure.
Wow.
And the year went with all its struggles. A month ago, my farm burned down.
We saw that.
95% of the farm burned down, and 30 cattle also perished. So it is one of the most difficult years I've had to endure personally. And now coming to the farm, it's ashes. So we are feeding, at this point in time, we are feeding cattle. We've taken some of them off the land because there's no space. So farming is not an easy process to talk about, because every time that I'm on the farm, it's just, you see just darkness. But then, of course, we must have hope.
Of course.
We should struggle through hope, and I think hope is carrying me for this period of time. But it's a very, very difficult process. So farming has not been really, really nice. We do a lot of hay cutting. We cut grass and then we bale for, at least the hay is really helping us now to carry some of the cattle through, but under difficult circumstances, because now we have to feed cattle every day, of course, to keep them strong before we load them on the trucks to move to other farms that we are going to lease for the short period of time. Hopefully the rain is coming. So farming is not the best of things to talk about at this point in time, but we are surviving. Last night I came from the northern part of the country, and I see between Oshwarongo and Okahanja huge veld fires.
Burning again.
Huge veld fires. So it was just... So it's one of those things that if we don't get our rain as early as possible, those farmers are going to suffer dire consequences. But then we must remain hopeful.
Of course.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, speaking of difficult situations, what is something that you live by that inspires you every day, even when things are really hard?
Yeah.
Well, I always say that every morning you must rise above the yesterday's challenges. Every day you must just become a better person. I use a philosophy that is always taught in schools. It's called the philosophy of regret minimization. Now, regret minimization is a philosophy that every decision or every task that you embark upon, you must always try to minimize the regret of that decision. So every time, my kids know this, that Papa is a person who thinks a lot. I always devote a lot of time in thinking. I mean, in a 24 hours day, I think probably 5 hours just thinking, sitting next to the pool or in my study at home, in my office, and just thinking. Because every time that you embark upon any challenge, whether personal, whether work related, you always want to regret the decision. You want to minimize the regret that if I take this decision, I must make sure it is the right decision at the best time and the best that I could have taken. So that drives you, because you want to regret decision making, you want to minimize regret. You always take decisions with hindsight that you want to rethink. If I have to take a decision politically on attacking the question of youth unemployment, for example,
Yeah.
I have to think it through. I would always ask myself, what is the best position I can give to the country for young people to really see that they are represented by leaders? What is it that we can do best for the country at this point in time to make sure that we address the problem? I think it's very important that one develops synergy within your own mind to really think and reflect deeper, and always attempt to rise better than the other day, because yesterday is gone, tomorrow is still to be born. So every time that there is a tomorrow, you must rise harder, fight harder, and you must always consistently move on, whether you're moving at a slow pace or a high pace. Just move on. Don't give up on life.
Wow.
I wanna take it back a little bit, just take it back into time and get to know a younger McHenry. I think this question, which I personally want to know, is where did you go to high school, and did you partake in any sports? What was your favorite sports during that time?
Well, I was actually never. I went to David Besseitnet High School,
Okay.
and I never did sport. I did a bit of cricket.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was a cricket fanatic for a very short while, but then I was always a politician. Even at school in the SRC, I was always doing leadership.
Yeah,
I was running the school,
Running the
with the teachers and everybody. So, and this year I also had to give way to a favorite teacher, Colin Williams, who was my history teacher, because I was chairman of the History Society. So it was always a rancorous debate between me and my teachers on history of the world, where the politics was going. So I think I was already crafted in high school. I was already crafted in politics. I was not really a sport person. Even up to date, I hardly watch. I'm a Liverpool fan, but I hardly watch soccer.
Really?
I hardly watch.
Now that you say you played a bit of cricket, do you watch the ongoing cricket World Cup?
Well, I never had the time to do it.
Yeah?
There was just no time. But I would now and then follow what my favorite team, of course, our Namibian team was doing good. Pakistan is also a country to watch and so forth. But then I'm not really a sport person. In fact, my party is hitting on me that I'm not investing in sports. So, and it's a critique I take. It's a critique I take. It's a critique I take that we need to do more on sports and so forth.
So what I'm hearing is that McHenry Venaani has always been very deeply into politics, very much a philosophical man, and very much vested in learning and understanding history, which actually explains why you speak in Parliament the way that you do. It's quite deep and philosophical and analytical. So not to get too serious, but then your investment in the genocide issue and your voice in that has been very strong. So given these interests that you have, how do you think Namibia could better have, approached the genocide issue that we're discussing right now?
Yes, just a bit of historiography. We shouldn't get serious because you want. Look, there is no other young person who was privileged to be with Chief Riwako, Professor Karina, and many other luminaries of our people. Started the struggle. I was right there. In fact, I was their first secretary. So it's like I'm one of the pioneers that pioneered, together with them, the debate of genocide. I think what should have happened was that we did not listen to one another. A number of mistakes were made on both ends, both at government level and at community levels, that everybody played arrogant. The government left communities out. Some of the communities that were asked to come in were also having overly too big demands that we didn't listen to one another from the onset. And it gave Germany a powerful hand to negotiate, because they were negotiating with divided people. What we can do is that we need to listen to each other, realize the mistakes that we have all made, come back to the drawing board and create a formidable force of a Namibian negotiating, because our interests should reign supreme. Our national interests should reign supreme. Now, whether I had a disagreement with you or you have one with me, what are those commonalities that are defining our national interest? And if that national interest is articulated, then all of us must stand together, government on one side, affected communities on the other, fighting Germany on a second round to see what we can get out of it for the best interest of our country and our people. And I think that room is still there. But I think political parties must rise above political pettiness and really reach out to one another to cut out a deal that is long-lasting. Because what is happening at this point in time is that bilateral aid and development aid cannot be construed as reparations. Reparations under UN conventions is very clear, and under international law, you atone for the wrongs that you have done. Now, the Germans are saying we want to pay reparations, but in a text, they are not contextualizing what is reparation. They want to pay reparation through mouth, but in the text, there is no single word that refers to reparation. So how do you agree to an international instrument and say that no, we can go and renegotiate later, but let's agree? The minute that you agree on an international instrument, and I'm a scholar of international law dictates that the minute that you accept something, it forms part of the deal, it forms part of the contract. So what we are trying to push is for the stakeholders, especially at parliament level, not to accept the deal, but to refer the deal to a select committee of parliament that would primarily deal with the issue of genocide, to go and prepare the groundwork for a renegotiation, prepare the groundwork of bringing communities in, speaking to government. It's like a midwife intermediary committee that deals with all the loose ends, tying the loose ends and taking the matter back to government and bringing people on board that were left outside and say, like, let's push for the last round in our national interest. But you guys don't want us to talk politics.
One more question on that. Then we move away from politics. If all of that is done, what do you think would be a fair deal?
Look, a fair deal would be informed by the seriousness of Germany. If Germany says, look, there is no country, no civilization, no polity in the world that has institutional memory that Germany has. Germany is the only country in the world that has paid the Jews. Germany is the only country that has atoned people out of a genocide. So they are at a better position to say, we did this to the Jew. We might not, the numbers might not be the same because these are 6 million Jews that died after the Second World War. But we have the capacity to deal with that problem, because Germany up to today is paying Jews that are in Poland, that are in Eastern Europe, that are in Israel, and everywhere. So what the fairest deal would be, any reparation that Germany comes close to say that, fine, we understand that we have done this wrong, and therefore we are going to atone you. Now let me just bring you to the calculus. You see, government pays war veterans in this country nearly $1 billion every year. Now, the struggle of national independence was a very key struggle that brought and ushered the independence of the country, that influenced a number of processes that brought independence. But not more than 4,000 people died in that war. Roughly, it could be 4,000 to 8,000 estimates. Now, these people are getting, as war veterans, $1 billion every year.
Wow.
$1 billion every year as war veterans. For the next 30 years, how much money is that?
Phew, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, okay. That would be, it would translate into close to 27 billion in 30 years. Now, you are talking about Hereros and Namas, that communities that lost 80% of their population, dispossession of land, dispossession of cattle, 60% of the Namas were 50% of the Namas, 80% of the Hereros. You're talking about 200,000 Namibians that has lost. Now make that calculus, that if you are paying for war veterans $1 billion in the next 30 years for 27 billion, what is enough for 80? So there is no amount that can ever quantify the loss of life. But there is an amount that can quantify generational poverty. And what should happen is that we should also not focus on the cash amount. We should focus on institutions, transfer of students between our two countries. So that if you put up a university on agriculture, that all our students can be able to benefit, not only those that have died or who are descendants of the genocide, but every Namibian should be allowed to go to that university. And that person, you can uplift that generational poverty through giving that education. If there is a desalination plant in Cape Frio, at Cape Frio that takes water to Kunene area, why wouldn't you extend that water to Umsati, to Angwena? You see, there are so many projects that we can dovetail around to create the biggest success in the country. So if you, for example, if this genocide money can be able to create 3 desalination plants in the country, we would address agricultural revolution. And everybody could benefit from it directly and indirectly. So there are a number of projects. Now the Germans want to throw projects at us to say, no, we will restore a museum here. We will do a school here. We should think big as a country.
Yeah.
We should be at a point where we say, what is the maximum benefit that we can get out of this genocide deal that would be able to transcend to future generations, addressing youth underemployment and unemployment, addressing generational poverty and so forth. So these are some of the things that we are saying. What is the fairest amount is how we package that fair amount that can benefit the whole country.
Absolutely, and those are big ideas, befitting of a tinkering mind.
Yeah.
For someone who
100%.
spends at least 5 hours a day just thinking,
100%.
it makes a lot of sense. And I think maybe one final question, just something a little more lighthearted, because we got a lot more serious than we planned to.
Exactly.
But if you were marooned in the desert, if you were stuck in the desert, what are the 5 essential things that you would want to have with you?
In the desert, that's a difficult one. Well, I think the first thing is to have wood, a match, to be able to warm myself. I would be able to want to have a radio if I have airwaves to listen to, because I am a news person. I sleep every day, probably 2:33 in the morning, listening to international news. If you ask me what is happening in Indochina, in South America today, I'll be able to relate it to you. So I think news is very key to me, and a good book, and food, of course. Well, I have a very beautiful wife who is second to none at culinary affairs.
Yeah.
Everybody knows Venaani's wife is a great cook. She
Okay.
a great cook. So when I'm home cooking, enjoying her food is always a treat. So a good food is always a good treat for me. I like good food. But I'm a person who eats everywhere.
Yeah.
You would find me in Karatura. I eat at Shikaindu. I would eat a sheep head. I would eat this, that, the other. So I don't mind where I eat, but I enjoy good food. So I would love to be in the desert having a good braai and I make the best porridge. You know.
Oh, okay.
Well, when we are braaiing, I make the porridge, and it's called it's like a porridge salad. I put in condensed milk, put corn, I put Vienna inside, I put onions, I put green pepper, I put...
No, but that pub went to private school.
At this point, no, really.
At this point in time.
Yeah, so I do a number of things, and I'm a family person, really. I never have the time, and I think I must thank my partner for that, because she's raising our children really alone. Because I'm on the road every time, through the country, over the world, and so forth. But when I'm home, every day that I come home, I go upstairs, I greet the kids. So I make it a point to, when the week, in the week I'll be there 3 to 4 days. The week that I'm at home, I'll always make time for my girls. And so spending time with family is very key. And then I'm an ordinary person. One thing that many of you do not know, and many Namibians do not know, is that they find me in Karutura, they find me in odd places, and they always wonder, is he doing it for electioneering purposes?
Yeah.
It's just my character. I'm just, you'd find me
everywhere.
You'd find me everywhere with people, because I like to talk, and I talk a lot, and I like to engage. So even if I go, the 2 weeks ago, I was in Ethiopia for a very long time. And in Ethiopia, I asked to go to the poorest area. So everybody was like, why do you want to go to the poorest area? I said, how do I really relate with Ethiopians if I don't see their suffering?
No.
So everywhere I go, I always make it a point to go to Kenya, go to Kibera slums.
Yeah.
And there's this story that I would always tell and retell, the destitute of our people. One day, many years ago, I was in Kibera, Kenya, and I was a freshman, a member of parliament, probably 24, 25. And this lady had twins, 2 tall girls. So as we were walking in the street, so I was really intrigued by this beautiful, tall Kenyan woman, very young, beautiful. And then I made a joke to the mother. I said, I want to marry one of your daughter.
Yeah.
And this woman, Mrs. Karua, I will never forget her. She said, no, Mrs. Karua. He said, my son, you can marry one of them. But and then I said, how many kettles should I pay for one? But because they were really, really beautiful. And I was making a joke. And this woman says something that has kept me going all along. She said, my son, you don't need to give me kettle. Just make 2 things. If you can assure me that if you marry my daughters, you would give them a toilet, a flushing toilet. And if you can give me, as your mother-in-law, a flushing toilet in Kibera, then you can have them.
Wow.
It tells a story. I always
Yes.
interrelate this. I've told it so many times in Parliament. I say that we are relegating our populations, our citizens, to points where they demand the barest for them to be.
Just for them to be comfortable.
To be comfortable. And toilet sanitation is such a key issue to me. That day, that day made me think that sanitation is such a big issue that somebody would give away their own just to get a flushing
Just for a flushing toilet.
So learning this experience makes you think that if you come into Brazil, in Brasilia, in Brazil, and you go to, the president wants to see you, or you want to see the president, you always make time to go to the poorest of areas, to go to the favelas and see how people are living.
How people are living on the ground.
And by seeing that, you realize that there is a tonnage of work that we need to do as citizens, as leaders, as people that prepare to want to lead others, that we must perfect ourselves.
Yeah.
And by perfecting ourselves, do things right. Because how much does it cost to provide toilets to poor people?
Yeah.
It's not the highest amount.
It's not the most expensive
it's not
thing.
the most, but look at the money that is every day. Corruption is on the front page. Then we should ask ourselves these questions.
We should ask ourselves these questions.
How can we change humanity?
Oh, I wish we could talk about this all morning, McHenry. Thank you so much for coming into studio to spend the morning with us. I know you're a very busy man, and I'm glad we got to see a little bit in depth and behind the position, and we got to see McHenry Venaani himself, the man who loves farming, who's a philosopher,
is a foodie.
Is a foodie and a girl dad. And a girl dad. So thank you so much for joining us in studio, and we hope you're going to have a lovely day.
Thank you very much, young people. May the conversation continue. I would start listening to you already because I didn't know about your existence. But invite young people that they tell their stories.
Yes, definitely.
There are so many struggles that we need to support, so many struggles that we are forgetting about. Sometimes when you are in Parliament, you are in these high offices, air-conditioned offices, you don't get to see people.
The reality on the ground.
By retelling your stories, the struggle of a security guard child that goes to UNAM by food and gets a degree, retell these stories. That we really create an avalanche of better leaders than us, because one wants to live and bequeath the world with better and well-equipped leaders to fight the challenges of the world. Climate change is a key issue now that we are at COP. I would want you to host a debate on climate change. How does climate change affect the young people? And how are they ready to mitigate the challenges in front of them? But the conversation, I'm glad to be in the company of young people. I feel a little bit young. The other day I was buying leeks at Agra, and the kinders say, "Hi, uncle." I'm like, "Who's the uncle?" I thought I was a sexy guy, but then I realized these people are also getting old.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
That was McHenry Venaani in studio with the Breakfast in the Desert crew. It is 8:03 on the clock. We've got Blossom Queen coming up.